And maybe, Giorgio, we'll start with you. I mean, as you mentioned, financial literacy is a great challenge. It's going to be ongoing. And you've been in asset management for 20 years in many different countries. And, you talked about AI and focusing on that today. As we think about this, whether the words hyper-personalization or exactly where it is, Giorgio, how would you think about it in terms of how we've progressed and some of your thoughts on personalization, particularly in financial advice and digital wealth?
I have to say, actually, that I'm probably, from my experience, two different worlds, right? There is the US, where actually I think there is quite enough of supply of this personalization of financial advice. And I'm thinking about Wealthfront or Betterment or Wealthsimple, where they give you a lot of solutions and they really try to understand you quickly with an app. So intuitive, it's quick, it's dynamic, it's young, so it's easy to do. And then you move to the old Europe, where this offer is really behind. There's no a competitor like those giants in US. Someone tried, and I tried I have to say, in a poor way, so I'm not going to mention any name. But there's no personalization whatsoever, and the price is too high. So the higher personalization and the customization to the single final client that has the 100 euros to 1,000 euros to start with has to be automized. So the robot advisory of this world, we are not there yet. So the price is really high. Customization is not existing because they usually have like 3 profiles or 5 profiles, and that's it. And it's true. At the end of the story, we know that probably 5 profiles is all you need, and every one of us will enter on one of those. But you can do much better in giving the feeling to the people that you're taking care of their own needs and not just a generic answer to the mass production of this product. But so at the end, we are moving there. Europe is really behind. And since I moved back, I noticed how much space there is for this big company. But the investment is huge, and probably there is not enough money to put to start with, because you will need a market that is big enough, right? US has this major advantage. Just speak one language. It's one gigantic country with a lot of millions of people. And so the return on the investment is quicker. In Europe, you need to customize for different regulation. UK, Italy, Germany, France. There's no one market. So you need to respond to so many different rules, and every country is not big enough to have this scalability. But hopefully we'll get there, and the regulator has to help, I think, simplifying the difference within the different countries.
I think it's a great point. As mentioned, I'm in America right now, and you're right. Huge market, everybody invests, homogenous, one language, one regulator, and with tech that grows. Some examples of how personalized financial advice can work in the future. Giorgio, I mean, look, you're working with some startups. How does it work? So let's say we can get over these challenges of the regulators and we can get over them. What examples would you give, and I know, as you're saying, you're looking at AI in different ways, how would you perceive that it can work in the future?
I mean, again, to me, they had just to copy what has been done already in US. Like you look at the Wealthfront and Betterment, and you open the app, and it seems that work for them, but I don't, right? Just use that as a user. And it's so convenient. And now they add even more flexibility. They really come to you and say, are you, an ESG fund? Like you want to make your portfolio really help in the future? And they give you a setup that will achieve your return target while taking care of this other one with 2 clicks. So very, very easy. And that's what we need to do in Europe, because the people with 100 euros, 1,000 euros, they need that kind of service. It's something that is easy to use, really handy, and that's where we need to go. But it requires a gigantic investment at the beginning. And that's what I think is missing. And I actually called Wealthfront to say, why don't you come to Europe? And they said that we have enough problem now to grow the business in US. And as we said before, Europe is so fragmented that the return investment is not exciting for some giant like Wealthfront.
Yeah, like I think that reality of Europe is, I suppose it's like kind of the market whereby being segmented, it is hard to make the commercials that reality from that reality. Giorgio, I think, as you said, you're using AI, or I think as Robert said, maybe explainable AI. But Giorgio, how would you what are you doing in this space that you think is relevant?
So to start with, I think the real major problem is why people are not doing the right thing with investment is trust in the counterpart. And they mistrust banks and the system for a reason, because they've been screwed for the last 30 years, right? When you buy a fund that costs 3% a year, that's clearly, it's a scam, right? We should stop it. And even now there are products out here in Europe that cost like 2% and they invest in money market, like with negative yield. How can you justify such a fee on this product? So this is again back to the regulator, because I don't think anyone that is making millions will say, okay, now enough guys, I made enough money, let's keep it. So that should be stopped, because it's really easy to be seen that it's wrong. And so people mistrust the system. And that's why I think what is needed is real some institution that does only education, because a lot of banks are doing this education, right? You have the bank account with them and they give you like some financial literacy. At the end of the story, they're always trying to sell you some trading courses, but they give you also the right information. But people don't watch those videos, they don't follow those courses because they think, okay, it's a bank, they're trying to sell me something. And somehow they're right, right? So that's why I think it should be really some independent party that is qualified and big enough to go out and educate people, and people can trust that you're giving them education and that you're not selling anything else. But that's the major effort. And this is what we're trying to do with Mass4. So we're trying to establish ourselves an education company only in financial literacy, nothing else. We don't sell consultant, we don't sell portfolio, we don't provide any advisor how to invest money. We want to just educate you, and then you go and talk with your advisor after you understood what you need to do, right? And the question you need to ask. So I think it's really helpful if there are more companies like us, because that alone will never be able to, but we need more support. And there are more companies pushing that direction, then maybe we can change what is going on now.
I think it's a great point in that, so like I used to be at E-Trade 20 years ago. And when we started E-Trade, it was so hard to get customers because people are like, oh, you're not a bank, therefore we don't trust you. Fast forward 20 years and think about it. The millennials of today were teenagers when the GFC happened, and their parents came home and were like, oh no, the world's ending financially and banks have messed up. So they, in their brains, they are like, oh, banks messed up when I was young. And, today, they trust these digital apps. So whether it's, I'm not going to say Robinhood from Trust, so that maybe that's a different one, but whether it's Betterment or Wealthfront or whatever it might be, I think to cross over to using a application that doesn't come from a bank background is much higher today. And you're right. I think right now is the most kind of fertile time, the best time to launch these products that can get trust. And I think you're right. Like, I think it comes back to another point. The wealth industry was never set up to benefit the customer. I don't think the bank is staffed with bad people and charging too much. It was just never set up. It was set up to make, financial institutions money. It wasn't set up to benefit the customer. And I think we've got to change that, right? That's because in the end of the day, as you say, taking 2% on a money market fund with a negative yield, that's not a sustainable path forward.